Okay, let's unpack this. We often hear that science and faith are, like oil and water. They just don't mix.
Hmm.
You have your cold, hard facts over here in the lab, and then you have your warm, fuzzy beliefs over there, and they never meet.
Right.
But what if that's actually a false dichotomy? What if the very structure of the universe, from, I don't know, subatomic particles to the way we experience a sunset, actually points to a rational argument for a creator?
It's a fascinating premise, and it's exactly what we're exploring today. We're doing a deep dive into 12 Arguments for the Existence of God by Taslaman.
Right.
And I think the most important thing to establish right off the bat is the author's methodology. He isn't claiming he has some magical mathematical equation that equals God.
Right. He's not saying, here is a proof, like 2 + 2 was 4, now everyone go home.
Exactly. He's using what philosophers call inference to the best explanation.
Okay.
Think of it like a detective arriving at a crime scene. You don't see the crime happen. You weren't there.
You have clues.
You have clues. You have fingerprints. You have a motive, a timeline, a footprint. And you put all those independent pieces together to find the most plausible story that fits all the facts.
Okay. So that's what he's doing with the universe.
Yes. And he uses another term for this, consilience of induction.
Which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's basically a fancy way of saying when all the arrows point in the same direction.
Precisely. It's the idea of convergence.
Mm.
He argues that when you look at physics and biology and psychology and philosophy independently, they all seem to converge on the same conclusion.
So this whole deep dive is framed as a contest, then?
It is, between two worldviews. Theism, the belief in a conscious creator, and materialist atheism.
Which is the belief that matter and natural laws are all that exist, driven by coincidence and, well, necessity.
Exactly.
So we have 12 arguments to get through, which sounds like a marathon, but don't worry, we've grouped them into 2 big buckets. We're going to look outward at the universe first.
And then inward.
And then pivot and look inward at human nature. And trust me, some of the numbers we're going to hit in this first half are just, they're absolutely mind-bending.
They certainly are. So let's start with the big picture, the universe itself.
The beginning. This is argument number 1, the Kalam cosmological argument. It sounds technical, but the core idea is deceptively simple.
The universe had a beginning.
The universe had a beginning.
And this is crucial, because for a long, long time, the prevailing materialist view, going back to the Greeks even, was that the universe was eternal. It just always existed.
Yet if it's eternal, it doesn't need a creator, right? It just is.
It just is. But modern science has largely dismantled that idea. Taslaman points to the second law of thermodynamics.
Not entropy.
Mm-hmm.
Entropy.
Talk to me about that. That's the whole batteries running out concept, isn't it?
Basically, yes. The second law says that in a closed system, usable energy is always decreasing. Things go from order to disorder.
Heat flows from hot to cold until everything is the same temperature. Now, if the universe were infinitely old, we would have already reached heat death.
Right. The stars would have burned out quadrillions of years ago. We'd be a dark, cold soup.
A uniform temperature soup. But the lights are clearly on.
The sun is shining. We're having this conversation.
Exactly. The fact that the universe still has usable energy means the clock hasn't been ticking forever. It must have been wound up at some point.
And then, of course, you have the Big Bang Theory, which points to a specific moment of origin for space and time.
It does.
Yeah.
But Taslaman also brings in a philosophical puzzle here that I just absolutely love.
Oh, the infinite past.
The paradox of the infinite past. Yes.
I like this one. It's the counting analogy. He says, imagine trying to count to infinity. You can't do it. You can count forever, but you never actually reach infinity.
Right. Now flip it. If the past were truly infinite, if an infinite number of days came before today, we never would have arrived at today.
Because you can't get through an infinite series one step at a time?
You can't. It's like trying to jump out of a bottomless pit. The fact that we are here, right now, proves that time had a starting line.
And if it had a starting line, the logic follows.
Right.
Something or someone must have started it.
Mm-hmm.
Things don't just pop into existence from nothing. But let's move to argument 2, the laws themselves. Why order instead of just chaos?
This is where it gets really interesting. We take gravity or electromagnetism for granted. We drop a pin, it falls. Yeah. But Taslaman asks, why laws?
Yeah, why not just a total mess? He quotes Einstein, right?
He does. Einstein famously said the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible.
That's such a great line. It's like the fact that we can even do science at all is kind of a miracle.
It is. I mean, in a strict materialist worldview, laws are just brute facts. They're just there.
Hmm.
But in the theistic view, laws suggest a lawmaker, a rational mind behind the structure.
So why does matter obey mathematics?
Well, that leads perfectly into argument 3,
Yeah.
discoverability.
This one really stuck with me. The idea that the universe seems almost set up for us to understand it. Taslaman talks about utility laws.
Yes. Think about the Doppler effect or the laws of optics. These principles allow us to build telescopes to measure the speed of distant galaxies.
To see into the microscopic world.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. We humans evolved on the savannas of Africa. We needed to know how to hunt, how to gather, how to not get eaten. We don't need to know the Doppler effect to survive in the wild.
Right. Evolution selects for survival, not for being able to calculate the age of the universe.
Precisely. If our brains are just survival engines created by blind evolution, why are they capable of understanding quantum mechanics?
Or abstract math.
Or abstract mathematics, which is just scribbles on a page created by a human mind, but it perfectly describes the physical reality of stars billions of light years away.
Eugene Wigner called that the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics.
He did, and Taslaman argues this fit between our minds and the cosmos is best explained if both were designed by the same creator.
It's like finding a key that fits a lock perfectly. You just assume they were made for each other. Now, if you thought the general laws were interesting, wait until we get to the fine-tuning. This is where the numbers get absolutely insane.
This is the fine-tuning argument, and we need to distinguish between the laws themselves, like the fact that gravity exists, and the specific values or constants of those laws.
You mean the dial settings?
Exactly, the dial settings. Imagine a universe-creating machine with hundreds of dials. One controls gravity, another the strong nuclear force, another the expansion rate of the universe.
Okay.
If you turn any single one of those dials just a hair to the left or right, life becomes impossible.
So stars don't form or atoms fly apart or the universe just collapses back on itself.
It's that precise.
And Taslaman uses the grain of sand analogy here. He says, imagine all the beaches on Earth, every single grain of sand on the planet.
And you take one specific grain, paint it red, and hide it somewhere in the Sahara or Daytona Beach.
Right. Then you blindfold someone and ask them to pick up one grain of sand.
The odds of them picking that red grain on the first try are actually better than the odds of the universe having the right conditions for life by pure chance.
And even that might be understating it, especially when we talk about the Penrose number.
What's the Penrose number? This is Roger Penrose's calculation for the initial entropy of the universe, how organized it had to be at the Big Bang.
This number is baffling.
I want you to really try to visualize this. The number is 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123.
Wow.
To give you a sense of the scale, the source notes that if you took every proton, neutron, and electron in the entire observable universe, that's about 10 to the 80th particles.
Which is a lot.
An unbelievable amount. And you wrote a 0 on each one. You still wouldn't have enough room to write this number down.
You couldn't even write it. That just breaks your brain a little bit. That's the level of precision we're talking about.
Precisely. To get a universe that creates galaxies instead of just black holes.
But critics have a response to this, right? The weak anthropic principle. Basically saying, well, if it wasn't fine-tuned, we wouldn't be here to talk about it, so we shouldn't be surprised.
Right. It's the nothing to see here argument. But Taslaman counters this with the firing squad analogy.
Okay, what's that?
Imagine you're sentenced to execution. You're against a wall. 100 expert snipers are aiming at you from 10 feet away. They all fire. And you're still alive. Every single one missed.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't say, well, of course they missed, otherwise I wouldn't be here to notice.
Exactly. You would be shocked. You would assume there was a plan, a conspiracy to keep you alive. You wouldn't just attribute it to pure chance.
The surprise isn't that you're absolving it. The surprise is that the unlikely thing happened at all.
That's the point.
That makes sense. But what about the multiverse? That's the big counter-argument these days, right? Maybe there are infinite universes, and we just happen to be in the lucky one.
Taslaman addresses this. He argues the multiverse theory is essentially a metaphysical escape. It violates Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the best.
Right.
To explain the fine-tuning of one universe, the materialist has to invent quadrillions of unobservable, undetectable universes.
Which seems like a lot of extra baggage.
He suggests that positing one designer is far more rational than positing infinite universes just to avoid a designer. It's speculation disguised as science.
Okay, let's zoom in. We've looked at the cosmos, let's look at life itself. Segment 3.
The argument from life. Taslaman starts with a philosophical point he calls potentiality. He says the universe, from the very beginning, must have contained the potential for everything we see now.
Mozart's music, tea, iPhones.
Love, justice, all of it.
He uses that Lego analogy. If you have a box of Legos, you can build a toy car, but you can't build a real Ferrari engine out of plastic blocks. The potential just isn't there.
Right. So if matter is just dead, mindless stuff, hydrogen, helium, carbon, how did it contain the potential for consciousness, for art, for philosophy?
Theism would say that potential was loaded into the system by God.
That's his argument. And it's really important to note here, Taslaman is very clear that he is not arguing against evolution.
Yes, that's a key distinction. He's not doing the God of the gaps thing. He's not saying science can't explain this part, so God must have done it.
Correct. He argues that evolution explains how life changes, but philosophy asks why the process exists at all.
And he brings up protein complexity.
Yeah, he does. He cites biologist Stephen Rose on this. The odds of amino acids just randomly bumping into each other to form a single functional protein are just. They're astronomically low.
Even with billions of years.
Even with billions of years, the math is incredibly tight. Okay. And then there's convergence. This is the idea that evolution keeps coming up with the same solutions independently.
Oh, like the eye. Or flight.
Exactly, flight. Birds, bats, and insects all develop flight on their own. Taslaman argues this suggests that these outcomes were kind of inherent in the laws of nature.
That the system was rigged to produce life and complexity.
It looks less like a drunk walk of random mutations and more like the destination was on the map from the very start.
Okay, so we have a universe that began, is governed by comprehensible laws, is fine-tuned to an impossible degree, and produces complex life. That's the external case.
That's the external case.
Now let's pivot. Let's look inside. Segment 4. Human nature.
This is where we get personal. Taslaman argues that our internal experiences, our desires, our morality, our minds are just as telling as the stars.
He starts with natural desires. The logic is pretty straightforward. We get hungry and food exists. We get thirsty, water exists. We have sex drive and sex exists.
Right. For every innate natural desire, there is a corresponding satisfaction in the real world. But here's the twist.
Humans have this deep innate desire for infinite life and absolute purpose.
Things that this material world literally cannot provide. We are never fully satisfied by money or fame or temporary pleasures. We always want more.
C.S. Lewis talked about this. He said something like, if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world.
Exactly. The inference is that this desire exists because the object of the desire god, or an afterlife, actually exists. Otherwise, we're a cosmic anomaly.
Creatures born with a hunger that has no food.
It would be a cruel joke of nature.
And that leads right into morality. Argument number 9. Is morality just something we made up, or is it real?
Taslaman points to these baby experiments to show it's innate. Researchers show puppet shows to infants, as young as 8 months old.
Okay.
One puppet is good and helps others, another is bad and hinders them. The babies consistently prefer the good puppet.
Yeah, they even want the bad puppet to be punished.
They do. At 8 months old.
So they haven't been to Sunday school or had ethics class yet?
No, it's built in. Taslaman calls this fitret innate nature. The problem for the materialist is if morality is just an evolutionary trick for survival, then objective good and evil don't actually exist.
They're just useful illusions.
But we don't act like they're illusions. We react to injustice like genocide or child abuse as if it is objectively wrong.
Not just inconvenient for the species.
Right. Theism provides a rational basis for that feeling, for objective moral truths.
Which brings us to the final segment, the mind itself. Reason, will, and consciousness.
This is arguably the toughest nut for materialism to crack. Argument 10 is about reason. Think about a physical atom. Is an atom true or false?
No, it just is. It's an atom. It doesn't have an opinion.
Exactly. Physical matter doesn't have truth value. But our thoughts do. We claim to know things that are true.
Okay.
Taslaman argues that if your mind is nothing but colliding atoms, if it's just physics and chemistry, then you have no reason to trust your own reasoning. Your thoughts are just chemical reactions, not logical conclusions.
It's like shaking a bag of Scrabble tiles and hoping they spell out a true sentence. If it's just randomness and physical laws, why trust the result?
Precisely. If your brain is just a machine determined by physics, you believe in materialism because the atoms in your brain forced you to, not because it's true.
And that ties into argument 11, the will.
Mm. If materialism is true, determinism usually follows. Everything is just cause and effect. But if free will is an illusion, then the scientists arguing for materialism didn't choose to evaluate the evidence.
They were just determined to say it. It undermines the whole project of science and philosophy.
It does. And finally, consciousness. The I behind the eyes. Taslaman talks about the aboutness problem.
Intentionality.
Yes. A computer processes symbols, but it doesn't know what they are about. It doesn't have an internal life. And he uses a great thought experiment here called Malia and the Fig.
Let me try this one. So Malia is a super scientist. She knows everything there is to know about a fig.
Every physical fact.
The atomic structure, the chemistry, how it reacts with taste buds. She has the perfect data sheet on figs, but she's never actually eaten one.
She has perfect material knowledge, but no experience.
Right. Then one day, she takes a bite. Does she learn something new?
And the answer obviously is yes. She learns what it tastes like. She experiences the qualia, the subjective experience.
Which proves that you can know every physical fact about the universe and still miss out on the reality of consciousness.
Subjective experience isn't reducible to matter.
And he also mentions the Chinese nation experiment, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine connecting every person in China via phone lines to simulate neurons firing. You map out the exact functional structure of a brain. Would that massive network suddenly wake up and feel pain? Would it have a collective consciousness?
I think most of us would intuitively say no.
Right. Complexity doesn't automatically create a self.
So, wow. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the Big Bang all the way to the taste of a fig.
And that is the point. Taslaman concludes with that term we started with, consilience of induction. It's not just one of these arguments standing alone. You might be able to poke a hole in one or find a counter-argument for another. But it's the fact that the beginning of the universe, the fine-tuning of the laws, the complexity of life, our innate morality, and our consciousness, they all point in the same direction.
It's the convergence.
Right. Materialist atheism has to explain all of these away. It has to say the beginning is a mystery, the fine-tuning is a lucky accident or a multiverse, morality is an illusion, consciousness is a byproduct. It struggles at every turn to fit the data.
Whereas theism offers a single, coherent explanation that covers all of them.
That is the core argument. Theism explains the data better. And Taslaman leaves us with a final provocative thought.
Which is?
We are creatures who can ask why. We have this burning curiosity and the capacity to understand the cosmos.
The fact that we can understand the universe might be the biggest clue of all.
Exactly. The universe isn't just a cold, dead place. It's intelligible. It speaks to us. And maybe, just maybe, that's because there is a speaker behind it.
A lot to think about. Whether you agree or disagree, it's definitely worth testing these arguments against your own observation of the world. That's all for this deep dive into the rational case. Thanks for listening.